I would like to invite you to the atmosphere, more to your senses than thinking function. Also, I decided to continue with the historical topic of historical trauma, and we see on the picture the tracks lead to heaven through the gate of unreturn. And what is it? It's Jacob's ladder, maybe. It fades into thin air, as in Jacob's dream. The ones who left, the ones who went into unknown, the gateway of disappearance, over a threshold of irreparability. I borrowed the text and picture from the website of the Memorial of Silence, Drums project in Prague, by documentarist Pavel Stingl, who is its soul and idea. The significance of the historical trauma is made present at the site in Prague, where the gateway to irrevocability, authored by Aleš Veselý, is a monumental symbol of the place where the war transports of Jews to concentration camps passed through. It was erected on 9th March 2015 at the railway station Bubny, which is to become a memorial commemorating the site from which 50,000 Jews, citizens of Czechoslovakia, were deported to ghettos in Lodz and Theresienstadt during World War II. And subsequently, other transports were sent with tens of thousands of Jewish inhabitants from Prague to ghettos, concentration, and extermination camps. After the liberation, the station experienced the removal of Prague Germans. On the pages of the Memorial of Silence is this text. We are all heirs to a shared past. By controlling fate, one of us in our family history carries the legacy of the victims, the other the organizers of the final solution, and most of others are heirs to the fate of the bystanders. Everything is a stigma. Together we inhabit a city that has changed its cultural identity through the mass destruction of the part of the population. Stereotypes motivating xenophobia and racial hatred are still present in today's world. It changed its features, language, and generation of actors. The key to identifying them is understand the past. One of the most powerful messages of the Memorial of Silence is the theme, Shoah within us. I return back to the history, to the 1933. The Hitler came to the power. It was the first step towards the future tragedy of the Jews. With the rise of fascistic ideology, the whole of Eastern Europe and the outside world began to tremble. Historical trauma intruded into individual human lives. I would like to illustrate shortly the situation of Jews in Czechoslovakia between the two world wars. Back between the two world wars was a great time to be a Czechoslovakia citizen. The Republic had been born in 1918, headed by President Tomáš Masaryk. You could almost forget you were a Jew. Much of Czech Jewry was secular in the 30s, says Helena Epstein, a cultural journalist, originally born in Czech Republic. In 20s and 30s, Jews were accepted, not just tolerated, in Czechoslovakian society. A bit less than a half of Czech Jews were married to Christian partner. In some areas of Moravia and the borderlands, German was the predominated language of the Jews, and in Prague, Jews made up half of the German minority. Unlike many Jews in the Bohemia who considered themselves Jewish nationalists and were active members of the Zionist movement. The tragedy of the Holocaust thus called the Jewish population in Bohemia in the period of the First Masaryk Republic, which was associated with assimilation in the democratic environment of the First Republic, when anti-Semitism was lower than elsewhere. Holocaust trauma in Czech Republic. This was followed by September 1938, when the so-called Second Republic brought a sequence of painful events, such as mobilization and the Munich Agreement on the one hand, and the German occupation and the establishment of Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia and the other. Even though the Czech Jewish identity has been shaken after Munich, Czech Jews consider themselves to be a fully fledged component of the Czech nations. For many Czech Jews, anti-Semitism allegedly began only with the German occupation, when the Czech were no longer primarily responsible for this phenomenon. The transport of Jews to ghettos and concentration camps opened the next phase of the so-called final solution. We see the tragic consequences of the Holocaust in the numbers of victims. More than half of Protectorate Jews did not survive the war. Most Jews emigrated either before or after the 1948 or 1968. The memory of the Holocaust was suppressed in communist Czechoslovakia. According to psychoanalyst Martin Mahler and our colleague from Raphael Institute, the so-called conspiracy of silence, in which former perpetrators, survivors, and mainstream society participate, contributed to the fact that the real reflection of the Holocaust was delayed by almost half a century. He continues, "The shadow of the Holocaust have thus been transferred into the lives and psyches of many descendants, often in an unconscious form. These people were often unaware of the extent to which their own lives had been affected by their parents' drastic past and their unconscious fantasies of persecution, oppression, and punishment. As a result, the vast majority of victims did not receive any help or seek in themselves. These people often remained blocked by immense anger, grief, shame, and guilt." In the 1961, survivor syndrome recognized by Netherlands as a specific phenomenon as a result of the mental consequences of a terror of persecution. It contained phenomena as insomnia, nightmares, chronic anxiety, depression, headaches, flashbacks, PTSD. By Jungian analyst Ursula Wirtz, survivor syndrome is about immediate states of severe anxiety, agitation, which can lead to loss of psychological control, a feeling of othersness in comparison with others that is difficult to express, the feeling of guilt, survivor guilt, shame for enduring humiliation, and the others. The descendants grew up with no roots, no history, no background of collective identity. The beginning of transgeneration trauma work in our country. In the former Czechoslovakia, it was only after the Velvet Revolution that people began to talk about the consequences of the Holocaust and to acknowledge the need for specific therapies for Holocaust survivors and their families. Helena Klimová, who's the founder of the Project of Families of Holocaust, said, "During the communist era, people perceived their identity simply. We were either us, all of us, or them, the communists in the party leadership. Similarly, there were no Jews. They were either anti-fascistic fighters, survivors of the concentration camp and handful of partisans, or an ideology enemy of unclear origin, the so-called Zionists. Even after the Velvet Revolution, many Jews continued to conceal their Jewish identity." On the initiative of Helena Klimová, a publicist, Charter 77 signatory and group analyst who survived the Shoah as a hidden child, a self-help group of Jewish therapists came together in the early 90s to educate and help each other with clinical cases involving war and transgenerational issues. In 1994, in cooperation with Věra Roubalová, also a Charter 77 signatory and a member of the so-called second generation after Shoah, they founded the Families After the Holocaust project, follow-up to Foundation Tolerance, as a continuation of the original Charter 77 section against racism. The mission of the Families After the Holocaust project was to organize and provide psychotherapeutic help for people who are still suffering from the effects of Nazi genocide, including their descendants, and with a more general aim, to establish experience and to create more general rules for working with victims of totalitarian violence, with political prisoners, with refugees, with ethnic minorities who have been exposed to group intolerance. Thanks to Helena Klimová initiative, the British psychoanalyst Irene Bloomfield, a Shoah survivor, came to Prague repeatedly since 1995, and together with her colleague Gabi Glassman, a second-generation survivor, conducted seminars and workshops on the trauma of the Holocaust. They taught us how to deal with the Holocaust in our own souls as psychotherapists and how to work with collective trauma, to see historical traumas such as the Holocaust against the background of the individual fates of clients and patients. And for many of psychotherapists marked by the Holocaust, this experience remained repressed and unspoken even while preparing for the profession in Czech. Early self-help group therapists felt to need the established self-experience group where they could share their Jewish family histories and explore their own feelings. Gradually, they continued to work in 3 self-experience groups that met once a month for a weekend and once a year in a large group, exploring for themselves the painful and tragic effects of trauma, the importance of witnessing, and the hope for post-traumatic growth, renewed meaning, and attempts to transform trauma. I would like to share how we moved from our experiential group to psychotherapy. Helena Klimová with her group from the beginning of 90s, they, as I mentioned, they sharing and discussing case materials. And then in 1997, the first group, psychotherapy for Jewish clients, started. And Helena Klimová with Věra Roubalová, they wrote an article, the Transgeneration, Transmission of Trauma and the Possibility of Healing. It was in 2011. So in this article there is 14 years experience of working in a group with the transgeneration transmission. They reflected on the themes of the importance of the kinship of the fates of therapists and clients, the span between culture and neurosis, the need for meaning and the need for guilt, saving the world and the need for order. They addresses the phenomena of projective identification, the false self, generational role, reversal, and more. What the first generation experienced as a difficult conflict of history, the second generation finds difficult to digest in the intimacy of family and body. The trauma created in the first generation at the social level is transmitted to second generation in the form of interpersonal personality and psychosomatic disorders. Our colleagues from Hungary and Poland spoke about consequences to next generations. So I only shortly mentioned, or you can see the picture. And I would like to read from Gabi Glassman article. We can deny that something exists, But there is no room for forgetting in our inner world. Both conscious and unconscious processing of trauma, conflict, problematic experience is part of the complex processes in psyche. The unacceptable, the painful, the unreflected is repressed into the unconscious and lived out its life in the form of unrecognized anxieties, fears, in the form of psychic fragilities and illnesses, in the form of somatic, psychosomatic illnesses. The unfinished mourning, the repressed relationship to an earlier cultural and religious identity will reverberate through the next generations. Members of the second generations find a way to express a family history they have never experienced. It is not only psychopathology in the second generation, but also a good way how to experience or how to share family history. I will show you two artists. One is Helena Epstein. She is a journalist. As I mentioned, she's from originally from Czech Republic. She emigrated with her family as a small child in I think in 48, and she wrote famous book, Children of the Holocaust. She came to Czech Republic a lot of times, and contact with her was very fruitful for our community in Czech Republic. She wrote that she felt like she carried an iron box inside her containing all the frightening family history and its accompanying emotions. From the interviewing other survivors' children, she says, she found her first real sense of community as an adult. Helena Epstein was one of those who, through her literature, mainly Children of Holocaust, shaped and opened the door to a generation of Holocaust survivors. The second one is Kamila Ženatá. The healing through the art is very nature. Kamila Ženatá is artist, and she's also analyst, a group analyst. And she spent a lot of time also with her art in her life, and also a lot of time with her clients when they did art. The theme of artists who speak in metaphors and help the subject to be reborn and speak again, the theme of loss of speech and words in trauma, rendered mute by horror, words lost for telling of traumatic experiences and the search for ways out of silence. The question came up also in a webinar for professionals in Slovakia. When somebody cannot speak, and maybe there was also one question, how to heal through non-verbal way. So how to heal in non-verbal way? One way is through the body therapy, and one way also is through the art. Kamila Ženatá's exhibitions touched me, and not only me, a lot of people, and it is very healing. I return back to the picture. Walk in, close the door behind you, and play out your own story. Named after a gathering place in Terezin ghetto, through which the artist's grandfather executed in a concentration camp, passed, the woman's skirt exhibition is conceived as 5 small enclosed rooms transformed into artifacts. The cloths hanging loosely on a line are made into objects. The cloths were left hanging in time. They ceased to live, says the artist, Kamila Ženatá. Its stays points to the generic burden that shapes each of us and with which we must work and cope. This is also why the exhibition ends with lamentation an installation of thousands of crystal tears as a symbol of the release of these very transgenerational traumas. She spoke about her Jewish family. Of my Jewish family, only my grandmother survived the war. Perhaps this is also a reason for me to examine myself, to not relive my own Holocaust. We spoke about historical trauma, transgenerational studies. Marek will continue with the transgenerational studies because he was the one who was a member of research of Professor Rector, and he will speak about it and other researches. And I would like only to mention, to have a link with the oral history in Slovakia and the other countries, that also oral history in Czech Republic started in Jewish Museum in Prague in 90s. And also the sociologist who had impact or have impact on our work is Eleonora Hamar and Alena Heitlinger with their study. Alena Heitlinger, in her book In the Shadow of the Holocaust and Communism, writes, "The second generation of children growing up under Czechoslovak communism had few sources from which to learn about their heritage. Like their parents, they displayed a wide range of attitudes from complete disassociation and denial to complete identification with their Jewish identity." Nora Hamar, she's sociologist and a religionist, and her book is about narratives. I mentioned also Martin Mahler. He's a part, and he was the president of Raphael Institute. He did research with a student of psychology about with the families after Holocaust, and it was his own clinical experience as well as and also the qualitative study of three generations. And he wrote, he spoke about phantoms of the lost objects of Holocaust appear especially in the narratives and stories of the past exchange between generations, which he carried out in the late 90s. I would like shortly only to be with the topic of therapy of Holocaust syndrome. There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside us. When we are working with the descendants of Holocaust, we know that they came to therapy not with the story of the survivors' parents, but with their own problems. And after a few years, these stories of Holocaust came up. So this is not an easy way, and we had to do with a lot of chaotic materials and a lot of unseparated narratives. So our work is separated and digest narratives of first generation with the second and with the third, and strength the identity issues. What is interesting in our work is working with ghosts. I only shortly mentioned, because of the time, the working with the ghosts is the working with the phenomenon, something that is present and not present in therapy. It is this lost narratives and lost people of our and their families who are like in atmosphere in consulting room. So working in unconscious is very important and so much healing. Me and maybe other colleagues who are psychoanalysts or Jungian analysts working with a phenomenon named dead third, or something what is deadly, like a part of psyche that is dead, and but it is present in consulting room, and we can see it in the therapies, for example, in early statement in the childhood, when we are speaking about quality of mothering in the part of traumatized mothers, not only from Holocaust but also from other genocide and violences, is like a traumatized part that it's like dead mother. And this part like create the void or something what is black hole in the psyche of descendants, and through the relationship with the psychotherapists, who are working with this chaotic black hole, and this is not easy also for psychotherapists to stand the kind of effects, emotions that comes up through this space. So it's up the training of therapists and personality to be strong and to stand these horrible emotions that comes up to this atmosphere when we are working with transgeneration transmission of trauma.
We could briefly speak about the experiences of the project and about the topics that appeared during webinars. And yeah, so it was, here is this slide is about Czech Jewish community. So the topics was emigration, identity, acceptance or ambivalence toward Jewish identity. So it was very close, it was around the identity all the time, feelings of alienation, questions arose about how to live Jewish identity in the contemporary world, how to communicate. There were questions related to family dynamics, transmission within the family.
Again, shortly, I think that we also spent very fruitful time with the professionals and Jewish community. But if will be a question about it, so Marek looked to the watches, so I continue to the end. And yes, it is possible to heal that existential transgenerational historical trauma. We hope, we are trying. This is the question and the sentence from the 2006 from Helena Klimova. And I think that this is the question to the world now. What we will do with it. Thank you for attention.
Okay, so I will follow Misha's presentation. It will be short, don't worry. I look, you are tired, but no more than 15 minutes. I will speak about organizations and activities. And I will speak about Raphael Institute and about this project. Just for those who do not know about, we stay in the synagogue. There is an entrance on the left side. Here is a historical picture of the synagogue. We have an office in the synagogue, and most of our activities are done there. Here is a short history of us. It started with Committee Against Racism, Antisemitism and Xenophobia, part of Charter 77. Then after the Velvet Revolution, Charter 77 was terminated. There was a Tolerance Foundation founded in 1992, and other organizations appeared, and now we have Raphael Institute from 2006. But the mission is all the time almost the same. We are interested how to help Holocaust survivors and other generations, and we are trying to combine different activities. I will speak about it later. Misha already mentioned the effort of Irene Bloomfield, British psychoanalyst who came also with her colleague many times to Czech Republic, and she helped us, especially at the beginning, where, as Misha said, we didn't have enough sense of identity, sense of belongings, and through her help, we started with groups of psychotherapists and psychiatrists and social workers and other professions, and it helped us much. Here is Martin Mahler, our first president, and in this sentence is also mentioned trauma and also transmission. So the issue of transmission, the idea of transmission was from the beginning of our effort. Here is the picture of Raphael Institute, the organization, and we now have 3 parts of our institution. We have psychotherapeutic training. I will speak about it a bit later. We have so-called Raphael Centrum. It's a part focused on help. So we have group therapy, we have individual therapy for Holocaust survivors and other generations. And we are trying from time to time to do some projects like small conferences, seminars, and so on. Here are other organizations around, Pre-Irene, Irene Preiss. We are supported by a Jewish community financially and also by thoughts. And there is Holocaust Endowment Fund, which financially support us. So we have a lot of help from other institutions. Our training, which is focused on trauma, and this is the only training in Czech Republic which is so much focused on trauma and is on long-term basis, is based from 3 categories: from self-experience, from education and supervision. Our students start with self-experience, then education and supervision come, and at the end, after 5, 6, 7 years, something like that, they might finalize the whole training. So it's a long way, long run, many years. Here are some figures, our psychotherapeutic groups from the first group up to the present situation, finalized 26 students of us, but there is many other students who are in the process, and we hope in a near future we will have more completed students. I will speak a little bit about research because some of us are involved in research activities. For example, I am working at the National Institute of Mental Health, and we are involved in research. So here is a small part of research focused on 3 generations of Jews in Czech Republic, survivors, and the second and the third generation, and comparison with Czech controls, let's say. And here is one comparison for post-traumatic stress, where that blue bar are Jewish participants and the second bar are controls. And we have the first and the second and the third generation. And if these comparison in post-traumatic stress are significant, there is significant difference in number of post-traumatic stress, not only in the first generation survivors, it would be, we can expect it, but also in the third generation. So it's possible to say that it skipped the generation. Even the second generation, the Jewish population, is a bit higher, but it's not statistically significant. We were also in the same study interested in post-traumatic growth, and again, the first generation in comparison with Czech counterparts have the highest post-traumatic growth, and the post-traumatic growth is also higher in the second and in the third generation, but it goes down. So it seems that those severe stresses from the Second World War made impact on post-traumatic growth. Also, it's a piece of our research. We asked these people about identity, and we discussed their identity with them. We gave them some options like Jewish, Czech, Czech International, and others, and we asked them to think about it, and they could create their own identity. Here is the example from the first generation. 15% of Czech samples, the sample was very small, only 41 participants, identify themselves as only Jewish. 66, so majority, there was about, let's say, mixed identity, so different combinations of identity like Czech Jewish and so on. 12% identify themselves as Czechs or Slovak. And there were also some other categories like international, European, and so on. And these figures show us Jewish participants who identify themselves only as Jews. So 15 in the first generation, 14 and 8 in the third generation. It seems that it goes down, the numbers are going down, but it's still within the standard error of estimation. So it's not statistically significant, even if it goes a little bit down. This figure shows us identity connected also with Jewishness, so the combination like Czech, Jewish, and so on. And it's 66 in the first generation, 61, 62 in the third generation. So it's almost the same, and it seems that most participants define themselves as with mixed identity. And here are numbers of Jewish participants who identify themselves as Czechs or Slovaks. So, and these numbers are relatively low, 12, 18, 19. I'm sorry, it's not seen, but here are types of identity, comparison of Jewish and Czech participants, and the number for Jewish participants are much higher. Here is 5 for the first generation Czech participant, and 11 for Jewish, 12 and 20, 13 and 16. So it seems that Jewish created more types of identity in comparison with Czech controls. Here is Raphael Centrum. It's our office at Jeruzalemská Street I was speaking about. We are sitting in these chairs, discussing issues together. Psychotherapeutic groups are there, and also individual psychotherapy. Here are some pictures from our conferences and seminars. We had several conferences which I'm not able to recall now the names, but for example, trauma and home, or civilians at war, and other similar. So it was around the wars and traumas and different groups involved. and also several conferences where with Israeli colleagues it was very interesting to compare experiences, and they gave wonderful lectures. Again, some pictures from our seminars and workshops. Here are some publications, some older publications about, at the beginning we tried just to write about trauma, and we try to focus our thoughts to understand what is going on, what is PTSD and so on. And later on we moved more to transgeneration transmission. Here are some books from different seminars. It's oriented to Holocaust, to order, identity, history, conscientiousness. Here is a collection of different articles. This book is about trauma, dream, and conscience, and similarly. So different books published by Irene Preiss. Here are some other and more up-to-date publications, like this one is about online therapy with Israeli and other colleagues. Here is Social Unconscious, Misha was speaking about it, and the book about associations. Here are some people who were with us in the past, and unfortunately they are not with us at present, like Hanna Junová. She was a famous psychotherapist, and she was one of people who started with psychotherapy in Czech Republic. Slavomír Hubálek, famous psychologist, especially after the Velvet Revolution, and psychoanalyst Václav Mikota. Here is our leadership, the first president, Martin. Misha is now the president. I was in the middle. Here are some other people who cooperate with us. Gabriela Dimešová is psychotherapist, similarly as Daniela Vidzinová. They have their own private practice. Magdalena Singerová is working at psychiatric hospital, and Věra Roubalová-Kostlánová is oriented in different civic activities. She is helping to emigrants coming to Czech Republic. Here is on the left side Helena Klimová, who started with everything, and we are very grateful to her. Vladimír Singer, psychiatrist, who's still cooperating with us, and Hanna Papežová, who is involved in eating disorders through her life. And one of the last slides, several present publications. On the left side is one about transgeneration transmission we published in 2019, I think. Here is Psychology Today in the middle. We had one issue, a number which was oriented to Holocaust and transgeneration transmission, and several people published their papers there, and it's from this year, Transgeneration, Transmission, Trauma and Resiliency. There are more authors present their chapters. Here is several citations from our research. The first one is Personality, Social Distance and Conflicts. We still have a grant, yes, we still have a grant oriented to perception of people from general Czech population to different minorities, also to Jews, but also to foreigners, to Romanis, for example, homeless people, and other minorities, and it was published now. We wrote a paper about the children from small group of children from Theresienstadt. And we found that Anna Freud, who in that time lived in Great Britain, started to take care for several children who survived this concentration camp. These children traveled to Great Britain in 1945, and Anna Freudová followed them for several years, and for the first year she visited them once per week, so it was an intense contact with these Theresian children. Here is one article about post-traumatic stress and post-traumatic growth. I was speaking about it some minutes before. Here is a paper oriented to biology about telomeres and comparing Czech participants with Jewish participants, and we were interested if telomeres might be shortened because of high level of stress. Here is another paper oriented to well-being and national identity. I was a little bit speaking about it before. And here is again one biologically oriented paper, lifelong impact of extreme stress on human brain, Holocaust survivor studies, because we had a chance to participate on Ivan Rector biological research, who also was combined with some psychological features. Okay, I am at the end. I wanted to shorten it a bit. So here is Eliška Jirová. You had seen her today, but she's not here now. Here is the map. Here is again, thanks to Visegrad Fund. So thank you very much.